In the institutions comprising the arts, Hollywood is perhaps the most influential and extensive. For this reason, we're going to take a little bit more time with the subject as we discuss our view of contemporary society. Hollywood represents a very large part of the primary institution of arts, for it is baseline to a significant entertainment industry which creates, produces, and distributes thousands of digital products every week through movie, film, video, across many venues and communication mediums. It's important for us to emphasize how Hollywood can have an immense bearing on our lives, as in our culture, Hollywood, along with the industries associated with it, have a deep and far-reaching influence upon our general culture and everyday society. Many of the ideas, thoughts, values, and feelings of society are captured by Hollywood and put into stories, movies, TV shows, and later shown to us, to speak to us, to move us, to make us laugh, to provoke us, or simply comfort our complex lives. And for these reasons, we are affected and shaped emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually by Hollywood. You might ask, what exactly is Hollywood? We think it's a fair and necessary question, and we think the answer has changed over the years. 65 years ago, if you asked someone what Hollywood was to them, people generally would have said it's a place where movies and TV shows are created. And essentially that would have been right, as the entertainment industry was still evolving, along with the complementing communications technology. Over the past several decades, Hollywood has certainly evolved in size, sophistication, pace, creativity, audience, and communication mediums. The advance of technology enabled much of the expansion, allowing movies, films, TV, music, and video to reach wider and wider audiences. In the early years, Hollywood was largely controlled and defined by 5 major studios and their respective leadership: Universal, 20th Century Fox, MGM, Warner Brothers, and Paramount. These companies essentially developed Hollywood into a primary institution of art in America. These leaders and their companies gave Hollywood its start and immensely contributed to shaping the American culture by discovering and nurturing America's creative, unlimited imagination, and perhaps most importantly, ultimately defining and shaping American values over the decades through the movies they made, the television shows they brought into our living rooms each night. Important values were artfully woven into stories, script, and imagery. They, through reason and morality, safeguarded the quality and message of Hollywood to be life-building as opposed to life-denying. However, that was yesteryear. Now there's a different answer to the question, what's Hollywood? Today it's very different from the industry your grandparents knew. Hollywood has grown and significantly evolved into a complex array of entertainment industries. Major Hollywood studios have bought other corporations, and themselves have been bought, and Hollywood has been absorbed into the giant media empires of the modern world. We find Hollywood of today interconnected into national and transnational corporations, all of which are firmly nested within the global economy. These corporations are huge, complicated, and with intricate webs of ownership. In a way, you could say, control of Hollywood today is not as simple and clear-cut as it was years ago. Let's illustrate with a few graphics. The first thing we're going to discover is the Hollywood of today isn't standalone anymore. It finds itself fully embedded inside one of several giant media corporations. And those corporations are few in number and massive. Here's a quick graphic of the big players and how they dominate TV and cable brands, either through outright ownership and control, or through strategic partnerships to ensure their content in the digital age, each having evolved into a vast combination of electronic media, communication systems, film studios, major TV networks, major cable brands, digital productions, digital movie libraries, music, and a variety of entertainment companies. Let's take a look at one of these mega media giants to get a fuller picture of what comprises it. Take the Walt Disney Company as an example. In terms of market cap, it's valued at $156 billion today, and if we explode out the full company, we can see how complex it really is. Disney is quite an extensive multimedia conglomerate, as are each of the mega media corporations. Herein we can see how many different businesses, each contributing something of unique significance to Disney, play an important strategic role in bringing the full company to market. Each business, individually and collectively, plays a tactical role in the overall business strategy Disney is looking to realize. Some companies are creative content providers, some production, some entertainment focus, some digital infrastructure. Several are delivery mediums through effective brands. And you can see a growing stable of companies poised to put Disney fully in the digital market of both today and tomorrow. At this point in time, there are principally 6 major corporations that own almost all the media in America and across the world. First, we have Comcast, then the Walt Disney Company, third, Time Warner, fourth, 21st Century Fox, fifth, National Amusements, and sixth, Sony. 5 of these companies are headquartered in America, and Sony in Japan. These are the relative market cap value of each company, generally as of August 31st, 2017. As you might note, these are large, successful enterprises, highly competitive, and high-earning businesses with a great deal of capital and asset value. We find today's Hollywood interconnected and living amongst these national and transnational corporations, all of which are firmly nested within the global economy. These corporations are huge, complicated, and with intricate webs of ownership. In a way, you can say, control of Hollywood today is not as simple and clear-cut as it was years ago. The big-name film studios are each owned by one or more of these media conglomerates. And so are the major television networks like NBC, ABC, the CW, Fox, and CBS. Once these were each standalone companies and powerhouses. Now they are subsidiaries of larger corporations. Each of these mega media companies have numerous businesses and subsidiaries underneath them, as you can see. And yes, it's a lot to take in all at once. That's the intent of this picture. We want to clearly demonstrate to you how the institutions of the media in our culture has evolved out of the relatively small institution of Hollywood into the big, complex, primary institution of media today. In each of these media empires, you will find the major film studios, TV networks, cable networks, neatly acquired over the past several years. Bear in mind, there is a business strategy unfolding here. Some own and have telecommunication infrastructure for digital internet delivery. Some have a mixture of entertainment companies, including music, concert events, labels. They all have an array of digital animation and content providers. Some have print and video and internet gaming. Again, all relevant to their respective business strategy. Each are eagerly vying for a strategic advantage over the other, attempting to build out a future model of media which they think will achieve strategic advantage in the marketplace. They're doing this mainly by structuring through acquisition and selective partnerships, structuring an end-to-end media empire from concept to creative to digital productions of varied content, and then to deliver to audiences the world over. Each of the mega media companies have different strengths and advantages to leverage and build from. We will continue to see other companies like Alphabet, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, and perhaps others seeking to get into the fray, figuring out how they're going to play in the new digital content world unfolding in our generation. And at this time, AT&T, with a market cap of $230 billion, is attempting to acquire Time Warner for roughly $80 billion. The deal is still in negotiations. If successful, barring no other mega acquisitions and FTC approval, this would make AT&T the largest media empire in the world, with an approximate capital market value of $310 billion. This would, no doubt, trigger subsequent mergers and acquisitions and partnerships amongst the other players in order to strengthen their strategic capabilities in the market. Well, back to our original question. So what do we mean by Hollywood, especially of today, knowing that it morphed into these acquisitive mega media empires? Hollywood clearly isn't gone. It's absorbed by these new companies and their new leadership, and it is still fully active in bringing forward the aspirations of creative storytellers, authors, and other artists, as it has over the past several decades. More importantly, today's Hollywood remains a powerful influence in our culture, much more so than old Hollywood, when the five studios and their leadership adeptly shaped America's values, and by doing so, safeguarded the larger culture. When you consider the quantity and productivity of the modern industry in its production and delivery to a consuming public, of the thousands of movies, films, TV shows, miniseries, and digital content they create all year long, today's Hollywood is clearly more impactful to our contemporary culture than was old Hollywood in the day. With the advance of digital, the internet, cable, satellite, and Fios, their works get distributed and watched at greater frequency and to wider audiences than ever before. So today's Hollywood, with its major film studios, combined with TV and cable networks, continue to have major influence in shaping our values and culture as the virtual nexus and center point of a vast entertainment industry. And therefore, in present times, Hollywood remains both a relevant and major influence upon our surrounding culture in defining, shaping, and nurturing values in society. Hollywood's influence is pervasive, reaching directly into our daily lives and those of our family members. So it goes to reason we should pay close attention to what's going on in Hollywood and where it's taking us. We need to understand how our lives are being shaped, engineered, and at times manipulated. Hollywood, through its affiliation with the media empires, has enormous resources to project communications into and about our lives, not just occasionally, but continuously. If you watch TV for 1 or 2 hours a day, watch the news 4 or 5 times a week, or see a movie 1 or 2 times a month, and you live for 70 years, it's quite likely that you will have experienced over 1 million plus messages of some sort, which Hollywood had a hand in bringing forward. And 1 million would be a very conservative estimation. It is largely through Hollywood many artists message their ideas, principles, and ideological beliefs, through their creations and stories, through their various characters and scenes, be it nonfiction or fiction, documentaries or dramas, comedies or sport, sitcoms or action films, horror or science fiction. Take your pick. The messaging occurs under the faces of Hollywood and through its limitless movies and screenings. Through Hollywood and its associated entertainment industries, those ideas and stories are given life, through imagery and voices resounding in our lives. And not unlike as it is in art or theater, Hollywood graces us with many incredible motion pictures, at times masterpiece classics in cinematic film, avant-garde explorations into the depths of our society's boundaries. Quite often, we've been enthralled with the brilliant artistic genius we see in the films produced for us to enjoy. We've experienced a splendor of creativity and innovation over many decades, for many people and companies alike. In fact, we still do today. for the magic of Hollywood is still thriving and pouring out fun and tears. Whatever the studio, the storytellers are busy creating, the artists painting, the writers writing, the directors directing, and the studios producing. In way of introspection, you could say the Hollywood contribution has reached deeply and most times meaningfully into our lives, stimulating our minds, stirring our emotions, and providing an outward escape to a world we may have never otherwise experienced. Hollywood is huge, and as such, it is a very significant part of the arts institution. Hollywood attracts and gives purpose to the unlimited imagination, storytelling, dance, theater, and music from talented minds across the world. Hollywood is indeed an expansive institution consisting of significant industry, which employs hundreds of thousands across all manners of trade and social backgrounds. It's worth taking a few moments to graphically illustrate how Hollywood extends presence across our society and is intimately wedded into our culture. To better understand this, let us illustrate. The first thing to recognize is Hollywood does not stand by itself. It is not apart from our society. In fact, Hollywood is every bit part of our surrounding culture, both taking in from the culture and giving back into it. In many ways, Hollywood has been and continues to be influenced by the many institutions and people within the surrounding culture, as ideas, values, morals, ideologies, intellectuals, and the many elements of culture resonate around and penetrate into the very institution and industry of Hollywood. Much of the inspirations for Hollywood are drawn from the prevailing culture, leading intellectuals and others to form aspirations they have for society, thoughts, stories, and books, which authors write, and which eventually become source material for the movie-making industry. And Hollywood's movie-making artfully tailors a message back into the culture and its audiences, most times magnifying a story, a principle, or a moral, or perhaps suggesting an ideological pathway, or squelching an issue with satire and comedy, essentially to teach, but sometimes to just punch, shock, or uplift and comfort. For many decades, this has been the prevailing relationship between the surrounding culture and Hollywood, largely a give and take, a give back and a take back. It has mainly worked this way given the leadership's cultural values, its mores and mores. As over the years, the leadership remained in general alignment with the surrounding culture, especially with religions, academia, government, business, and social leadership. If over time, the surrounding culture changes its tone, modifies its core beliefs and corresponding values, if the culture allows its institutions to weaken and lose grasp of their purposes, well, what goes around comes around, and Hollywood, by symbiotic relation, is likewise so affected. And Hollywood will similarly adapt to different boundaries, standards of society, mores, and public interest. Once it changes, it gives back that change into the prevailing culture, through the values and imagery it projects into movie plots, sitcoms, late-night comedy, and various genres. Another powerful factor in this cultural relationship is leadership. More to the point, the leadership of Hollywood and the associated entertainment industry. As the Hollywood owners and key executives choose to alter deeper change in their own culture, their personal values, ideology, principles, and standards for what quality is tasteful and proper, and by doing so, further distance themselves from the surrounding culture's contemporary state. As the Hollywood leadership reduces their trust in guiding values for good in their lives and in society at writ, for whatever reason, they in turn alter their judgment and discretion of what is good and bad for society by weakening and changing their responsibility as gatekeepers to Hollywood's production line, namely in the art they choose to endorse and produce, and the art they select to abandon and prevent. They will rationalize their abandoning of moral guidance with justification of perceived profit and growth, or trends they deem worth pursuing. This seduction of their will results in a relaxation of standards or values, or an ideological content. By consequence, content once deemed unacceptable, even harmful to psyche and spirit, is allowed in, and the corresponding good, life-enriching content is forced aside, if not pushed out altogether. The bad content, once established, energetically finds its way into the mainstream of movies and shows destined for the big screen and TV audiences the world over, and the semblance of art is thus impaired. Today, all matters of content travels more freely through the porous boundaries of Hollywood, unlike before when Hollywood industry executives served the noble purpose to filter out what was not proper for society and its children. And once produced, released and seen by the public, the themes and destructive anti-value contents resonate back into the surrounding culture, echoing their themes and messages, thus serving as a catalyst towards acceleration and exploitation of social and normative standards, aggravating existing weaknesses in the culture of society by diminishing or erasing the strengths of good values and morals, and conversely giving energy to bad values and immorality. Another consideration to recognize is how the leadership of Hollywood is an authority over any person with control on many decision points needed in the production of content, such as the stories, the plots, the scripts, the characters, the use of artifacts, the establishment of theme and tone, the moral message, or the political thoughts, and inclusive of how the scenes get shaped through the imagery and sound. If these Hollywood owners, key executives, and other decision makers unilaterally choose to make deeper changes within Hollywood's culture, due to changes in their personal values and beliefs apart from the prevailing culture, in effect they act as independent change agents in the industry, imposing their values and biases onto Hollywood's cultural mindset, and subsequently injecting them into their works. In this way, they can actively influence, weaken, or strengthen the values of society from the inside out. We've alluded to the size and scope of Hollywood, and we've mentioned how it's composed of many aligned industries working together to produce entertainment for all of us. Let's briefly look at how it works to more fully understand the breadth and depth of what we call the institution of Hollywood. We start out by again emphasizing the human machine of Hollywood is both influenced and influencer. It is influenced from without by the prevailing culture as we've previously explained, and it's influenced from within by the internal Hollywood culture amongst the industry leaders and other key players. With that as a given, let's take a look at the major components of the Hollywood machine. Most everything begins in the surrounding culture, where various people, typically in the literary world, come from various backgrounds, sometimes academic, sometimes religious, sometimes civic or social. In fact, they may come from almost anywhere in society and culture, where a person has an inspiration and a following aspiration to share their ideas with others. Those aspirations take the form of stories, theater, and books by authors or playwrights from all types of creeds, races, and geographies. From these mixed sources, the concepts are picked up by the film studios for their consideration as candidates for movies, miniseries, or sitcoms. Once a film studio selects a certain work, they line up a competent producer who organizes the resources and strategy for bringing the concept to life, thus initiating the tidal force of Hollywood production. The writer guilds, East or West, are commissioned to write up and produce a finished script that successfully tells the story and describes the scene and imagery. These scripts go through several modifications until they are deemed artfully complete, and then the directors get underway planning out the budget and detailed sets needed for production. From there, the directors move the production forward, integrating technical productions into scenes inclusive of modern-day digital sound and computer graphics, from stunning visual and sound effects. Of course, the actors and actresses are selected and skillfully positioned with scripts and scenes. The media types are determined in either an elegant film, or a movie, or a syndicated TV show, or a video destined for the digital world. Other production is complete. The finished piece is then placed for access viewing in theaters, movie houses, American home living rooms, or someplace in the digital platform via the internet. And there you have it, from concept to the viewing audience. The story is told, acted, imaged, and packaged for a consuming public. Rounding the whole process out each year is, of course, the glittery adulations of the many entertainment awards, championing in a self-congratulatory way the many roles and actors and actresses in the overall process. In this manner, the Hollywood cycle is largely completed, with only one exception. Once published and viewed by the public, there is a reaction. The momentum of the story, the movie or film or whatever, moves the viewer in some way, typically into emotional sentiments, which in turn condense into lasting, conclusive impressions. These sentiments, impressions, and conclusions further condense into an overall resulting feeling. The viewers either like what they saw and heard, or they didn't. Either an endorsement of the movies achieved, or a rejection of what they've experienced is expressed. And subsequently, either of these resulting impressions are resounded back as an impact into the surrounding culture, where they will echo and slowly, yet dynamically, affect change into the existing culture, improving it or weakening it. It's within this reaction on a personal level and collectively across the public that the minds and hearts are changed in some manner, for better or worse, on the perception of life, war, and peace, on morality or ideology, or most importantly on the foundational values which cohere our society into a good place, and by which the American public has traditionally stood for, or conversely those anti-values or vices which lessen the cohesion of society, and contrary to good values have been traditionally despised. And that conscious change in heart and mind which occurs is very impactful, which is expressed back and absorbed into the surrounding culture and its many institutions, especially into Hollywood's culture itself. The gist of the public response in total represents an overall affirmation or rejection for whatever content or message they received through the production they viewed. The predominant reaction carries the impulse back into the culture, where it resonates for years to come, either reinforcing an established value or weakening it or displacing it altogether. Or post-production and public viewing, the same public feedback based on ticket sales or TV ratings is taken in by Hollywood's leadership, owners, producers, and decision makers as positive acknowledgement or rejection of their advocated values, beliefs, or ideological positions, which they had sought to achieve through their movies, films, or TV sitcoms, reflecting their personal desire of altering public perception about an issue or belief they seek to affirm, upturn, or change. This concludes Video 6F Part 2 on the arts and Hollywood's impact on culture. Please continue on to Video 6F Part 3, where we will do a deeper dive into how Hollywood is shaping our culture with increased moral relativism and what that means to American families.